Kika Matos is a masterful social justice leader, both in Connecticut and on the national stage. Her social justice work has resulted in pivotal community building, courageous immigration reform, fearless anti-racism campaigns, as well as the unlikely repeal of the death penalty in Connecticut.
Kika is a next level advocate, right? She's been arrested, she's gone on hunger strikes, she's done all the things that we talk about and know that they have impact in this space.
I don't know anybody else who has made such a big impact on New Haven, who's inspired us to work together to tackle our big challenges in such a constructive way.
Kika was born in Puerto Rico in 1966, the youngest of 4 children. Her mother was educated as a teacher, and her father was an engineer who worked for the United Nations. His job took the family to Trinidad and Tobago and the Fiji Islands, where Kika graduated from high school in 1983. After graduating from Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand in 1987, Kika moved to New York City for her graduate studies at the New School.
Part of the reason that I went to grad school was because I wanted to do human rights work and I wanted to do gender justice work.
Ms. Matos stayed in New York City after completing her graduate studies to work for the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund.
I decided at that point in time that I was going to dedicate my life to fighting for the abolition of the death penalty.
With her law degree from Cornell University, Kika Matos went to work as an assistant federal defender in Philadelphia in 1999, representing death row prisoners.
It's hard work representing people on death row. At the end of the day, you're responsible in many ways for their lives.
After meeting Henry Fernandez, a fellow social justice leader, Kika moved to New Haven, where the two were married in 2003 and had their son in 2005. Kika Matos was hired to serve as the executive director of Junta for Progressive Action, the first woman to hold that position.
At Junta, Kika was one of those rare people who can both look at systemic change and day-to-day needs. So she had the after-school program, she had the English as second language courses, she had the programs to help immigrants get their driver's license, to find legal help with immigration problems. And from the time I met her, I was just floored by the way she had so much vision.
I tried to build an institution that mattered to people in this community and where they could really be equipped with the tools to lead positive, fulfilling lives.
In 2007, Ms. Matos became deputy mayor of New Haven, launching the innovative Elm City Resident ID Card program.
The idea of developing a card that would provide all the residents of the city to be able to live with dignity was incredibly important.
It was hours before City Hall opened. There was a line around the block of people coming out of the shadows and being embraced by and becoming part of our city. And it was joy.
And now there are 70 jurisdictions around the nation that have ID cards.
Kika Matos joined Atlantic Philanthropies, based in New York City, in 2009 as head of the United States Reconciliation and Human Rights Program, where she initiated successful efforts to end stop-and-frisk practices in New York and led a campaign to abolish Connecticut's death penalty.
The death penalty would not have been abolished in Connecticut if not for the work Kika and her closest allies did behind the scenes.
It was great to see that all of these years of fighting to abolish the death penalty were coming to fruition one state at a time and in my home state. It was just one of those experiences that I will never forget.
In 2012, Kika Matos became the Director of Immigrant Rights and Racial Justice at the Center for Community Change in Washington, D.C.
So I joined to be on the front lines of advocacy for immigration reform in this country. We really ramped up our effort to launch a national campaign. We launched our first civil disobedience. We blocked the streets with labor leaders and civil rights leaders.
She really was the mastermind around how they organized strategically in hundreds of cities all at the same time. I don't think immigration reform would have gotten so much attention had it not been for her and her work at CCC.
In 2016, we had a national crisis with kids coming to the border, trying to come to the United States. And so we called Obama out. So we had a civil disobedience outside of the White House.
Ms. Matos concurrently worked on social justice issues as they arose in New Haven, including the Corey Menifee case, where a black food service worker at Yale broke a stained glass window depicting slaves in the field, which resulted in his being arrested and then fired from his job.
And I was outraged that this African American man was going to be, criminalized for engaging in what felt like an act of conscience. We held a press conference and we said we're going to fight for Corey. And that began our efforts to make sure that Yale both asked the prosecution not to move forward with this case and to rehire Corey. And we were successful on both fronts.
And it would never have happened if Kika hadn't had the vision. If she didn't take one incident in one man's life, seeing the need for social justice, figuring out behind the scenes how to rally people behind that, take it to the next step.
And we decided that we were going to pivot our fight so that we would demand that Yale rename Calhoun College. And so we decided that we were going to get arrested to deliver the message to the corporation that we were not going to go anywhere until they chose to change the names. And we were successful.
It was a tipping point for the country's universities to reflect, to have some courageous conversations about their own legacy.
Kica Matos' final arrest while working at CCC took place in 2017 in front of Trump Tower in New York City.
The last arrest was in protest over the really horrific executive orders that Trump had advanced that were really wreaking havoc on immigrant communities. So we decided to have a civil disobedience outside of Trump Towers in New York City.
Kica Matos has received many honors for her extraordinary work, including the John F. Kennedy New Frontier Award, the New Haven Register's Person of the Year Award, Cornell Law School's Exemplary Public Service Award, as well as several honorary doctorate degrees. In 2017, Kika was chosen to serve as a proprietor of the New Haven Green, and in 2019, she was brought on as co-chair for Mayor Justin Eliker's transition team. Currently, Ms. Matos is the Vice President of Initiatives for the Vera Institute of Justice in New York.
Watching her work really is a masterclass in badassery and grace.
This is my calling. I don't know how else to describe it. This is what, every day I wake up with fire in my belly. This is what propels me. I don't know what I would do if I wasn't doing social justice work.